Greetings and salutations. This is David Duford at Duford Insurance Group, where I train and recruit agents nationally to sell things like final expense and Medicare, both face-to-face and over the phone. Today, I have a special guest, Mr. Tony Hakeem. Say hello today, Tony.
David, what's going on, man? How's everyone doing?
Doing mighty fine. Just trying to stay warm with all the snow and cold and everything that's going on right now. So can't complain too much.
Yeah, at least you're not in Texas, man. That's the good news.
Right. Could always be worse, right?
That's right.
So Tony is here today because Tony is, what exactly is your official position at Northstar?
I'm one of the owners at Northstar.
Okay. Owner of Northstar Insurance Advisors. And what he's here to do is give us kind of a rundown on what it's like to run a professional, large and successful final expense telesales call center operation. So what you guys can expect today is really get some inside baseball to how the business works, how to run a company based around selling final expense over the phone in a call center format. So if you're a telesales agent or aspiring agent, you're going to learn a lot about this business, or maybe you're even interested in running a call center one day. You're going to get some nice information, I think, on really what it's like to do it firsthand. So Tony, why don't you kind of start from the top? Tell us a little bit more about yourself and Northstar.
Yeah, well, Dave, thanks again for having me today, and really appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Tony Hakeem. I've been Northstar started and actually July 7th of 2015. And the story of how Northstar actually became created is a very interesting one, because at the time it felt like we were just a bunch of kids with an idea and a vision and said, let's just throw a bunch of crap on the wall and see what happens. And what happened is, in literally 5.5 short years, we took a very, very small final expense operation that was writing about $30,000 a week, and fast forwarding that to literally 5.5 years later, where now we're doing about $700,000 a week, purely selling final expense over the phone in the call center type arena. And so I share that, David, because I don't want to say it's easy to be in the call center space. It's not. It requires a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money. But there's nothing that we had from a skill set perspective that separated us from other individuals. My point of that is if anyone has an interest in getting into the call center space, you're absolutely more than capable of doing it, as long as you kind of just know a little bit of what to expect moving forward. And so that's where we're at, David. My brother and I got into the lead business. My partner, Aaron, was a telesales guy, and some way through divine intervention, we got hooked up together, and it's been great since then.
Yeah, I can remember back in the early days, you guys were the only people on the block doing telesales, as far as I knew, in any serious capacity. And you remember those early days where the naysayer said telesales is not possible, it can't happen. It's not real. I remember those
man, dude, I'll tell you, man. Not only is that true, but now it's different, right? Now that what we hear at Northstar is, oh my gosh, you offer low commissions. Oh my gosh, you guys charge a monthly subscription fee. Oh my gosh, you only sell with one carrier. But the truth is we're not crazy. Like we're not a bunch of stupid guys sitting in an office just saying, hey, let's try this. Let's see if this works. Everything is extremely intentional and extremely calculated, and it works. I was actually, David, listening to your podcast earlier this morning, actually, that you did with Danny Ray, which, by the way, was a phenomenal interview. You did a fantastic job on that one, David. And Danny offered so much great, insightful information. But he said something at the very end. So if you're watching it, go fast or listen to the whole thing, because there's a lot of good nuggets. But to the very end, he talked about his wife Lisa. And he says the key is keeping it simple. And so the very first thing, David, when it comes to scaling any type of operation, whether it be a face-to-face operation, a call center operation, whether you're selling term or final expense, is simplicity is the key to scaling. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, we're going to get into the details of that, because I'd like to unpack that a bit, because it really needs to be simple. Complexity is the enemy of simple. That's right. If you let this thing get out of hand and you make it too complex, it becomes impossible to scale. I definitely agree with that. So let's kind of talk and walk through kind of how your call center works. Starting with kind of the execution of the actual agent sales strategy. Are you and so much I'm sure has changed with COVID, and we can talk at length about that for sure.
Yeah.
Are you guys still bringing agents into a call center? Are you guys doing it virtually? What's your strategy in training reps and then letting them sell?
So from a COVID perspective, we closed down our office March of 2020. That's when we made a decision that we were going to shut down. It wasn't mandated. The government didn't make us do it, but we saw what was going around across the country. We saw what New York was doing, California, and then some of the more conservative states, which Missouri is a pretty conservative state, we saw started following suit. And what we didn't want to have happen in our operation was we didn't want to be handcuffed to be forced to make a decision. So we decided to get ahead of the curve and say, you know what? We're going to go ahead and send everyone virtual. And even though we already had agents that were working virtual, we never had any employees. We had no telemarketers, no customer service reps or back office staff. None of them were ever virtual. But I will tell you that with just hard work, lots of hours, we literally sent home over 200 people with a computer from our office and got them hooked up working from home. So we actually did not skip a beat with production because we decided to go ahead of the curve.
What's
That
up?
was a Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
No, you finish your thought and I'll jump in.
Well, I was going to tell you that was March of 2020, and then by July of 2020, we started allowing people that wanted to come back to the office on an optional basis to come back. Um, for those that know me, you know I'm an environment guy. I love high energy environments, and so I never stopped working at the office because my home is my home and my office is my office, and I did not want to put those two together. And so surprisingly, David, we're like, even today, what is it, February of 2021, we're probably about 60% capacity back into the office, all voluntary because people just love being here.
I think it's such a critical, important point. That's one thing I tell agents too. I recruit virtually. Essentially, I've been virtual in my recruiting since I started in 2014, and you recruit agents over the years. And I think one of the biggest weaknesses of what I do is I don't have that camaraderie that you guys have in your office. And there's this kind of intangible energy that I think your people will get, kind of seeing success as it happens, interacting with people that are successful to get feedback off of it. It's such a great thing. And that's good to hear that you guys have opened back up to do it. What was that transition like? I'm just curious to kind of, if you don't mind walking through it, just making that decision to send 200 people home. God, I couldn't imagine just from an organizational standpoint, having to wrangle cats and herd chickens and that kind of thing. It must've been really rough.
The hardest part, David, was getting folks that have like literally no tech backgrounds, like total ignorance of technology, and trying to virtually walk them through hooking up a computer at their home and getting the internet connected, doing a speed test, make sure that it worked. And because we had so many folks, our IT department, we have about 3 people in our IT department, they couldn't handle it on their own.
Yeah.
So it was all hands on deck. Every leader had to go in there and just do it. And there was, I kid you not, I swear, Dave, I got this question one time, and this is when I realized, God bless me, I can't believe we got this done. I had a lady that her computer wasn't working, and troubleshoot. And coming to find out, it wasn't plugged in. I'm like, okay, that's good news, Dave. We can easily fix that. So I said, Darlene, her name is Darlene. I said, Darlene, take the power cord and plug it into an outlet. She said, what's an outlet? And I said, it's the prong inside your wall that you plug in to get power. And she said, oh, well, I already have 2 things plugged into it. What do I do? And I'm like, okay, this is like God testing me of my patience levels, but we did it and it worked.
Now I know why all the computer people are like, did you make sure that the power is plugged in? It's probably more common than I think we'd like to.
They don't mean to insult your intelligence, but those are real questions you have to ask folks.
And you could sit there and troubleshoot things all day and you don't ask the most obvious one, right?
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
So you mentioned kind of your product strategy and keeping it simple. Can you go into detail or just kind of explain how you organize your product selection strategy for final expense and the kind of benefits it gives you?
You know, David, that's a good question. And I'm going to say this, and I don't want to tell anyone they're wrong, because whatever, there's more than one way to skin a cat. But in the insurance industry, one of the most common questions that I see that people are posting online, that folks are just chatting about, is they look at rates, and they believe that if they can find the cheapest price product, that it would make the sales process easier for them, or easier to make a sale. And to some degree, that is true. I mean, obviously, if you compare two products, one is cheaper, it's more difficult to sell an expensive product. At Northstar, we did not do that. We looked at finding a company that we felt had the greatest ease of doing business with, a company that was able to allow us to build, because commissions do matter. I'm not saying that you should only, I mean, I'll tell you, David, I'm sure you have a contract under your agency that's higher than what Northstar has. We don't not necessarily have the highest commissions. You got to look at the whole package. You have to look at, how do you partner? And I mean this, it's a partnership. How do you partner with an insurance carrier that you can truly grow and scale with? And that's why we choose to be a one carrier company, for really two different reasons. The first reason is it makes our book of business extremely healthy with American Amicable, which in return of that, and again, full disclosure, it allows us to gain leverage over the carrier. It allows us to look at increases in commissions, product changes. There's adjusting things accordingly. The second thing is it makes the sales process so much easier for the agents, because they don't have to choose between 6 or 7 carriers of what to write. They just have one option. Does the customer qualify for this product? If so, is it immediate or ROP? And if not, take the next phone call.
Yeah, it's one of the things I've learned as a developing in my agency. There is kind of a difference in thinking between maybe an experienced broker that doesn't recruit and train agents versus somebody who's growing an agency. And you realize a lot of the things that may work well for you aren't necessarily the best to scale with. There's kind of this difference. And it all comes back to your original point. You have to simplify the process. And for example, I won't name the company. Y'all who've been around me long enough know who I'm talking about. I love to work with this company. They did very well, but they're a nightmare administratively. And you would always get, you couldn't get an instant decision. You'd have to fax the application in. Half the time when you looked on pending status, that the underwriters asked other questions that weren't even on the app. And when you looked at it, if you looked at my whole pending for that particular company, half the business would never get issued. And you got to think about that. Like, how good is this company if half the business I send doesn't get issued? And am I doing a service to my agents if I'm recommending a company that they literally should just cut their commissions in half? That's what it ultimately means. And they're wasting their time. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And simplification and ease of use is something that I used to not think so seriously of, but really makes a big difference. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I mean, the question that I would ask you, David, is what did that carrier truly cost you? I mean, does it matter what the commissions were? What was the cost of actually using that carrier? And so it's such a true philosophy, and there's a reason. Again, there's a lot of call centers in the United States that sell final expense. There's not many that do significant business, that do tens of millions of dollars. There's many that do 1 or 2 million. And I talk to a lot of these folks, and their struggle is exactly the same way. They're taking a broker model that is pick up every insurance carrier you can to offer the best plan, the best rates to the client, try to translate that into the call center space, and then they're experiencing high turnover, and it's not working. It's not working. Now, it can work though, David, if you utilize technology to eliminate the decision-making away from the agents and let the computer tell them what to do. But that's pretty high-tech technology, and it's a really large investment if someone was willing to make that investment to their call center.
Right. What's your philosophy on the process of finding the right people for your organization? Again, at the end of the day, an organization is only as good as its people, your front line, and the people responsible for helping you keep the business written, certainly the business written itself. What kind of strategies do you employ to find the right people to grow your organization?
You have to look at unique skill sets, right? Like everyone chooses a career path based off of a passion or something that they actually enjoy doing, like sales, for example. Um, you get into sales because we like talking to folks. We love influencing folks. We get a rush off of doing that. So I got into sales. I'm like you, Dave. I'm an introvert. I don't, my personal life, I'm not a guy that's going to real small talk with you. But in sales, I mean, I just like to turn it on and go. Like, it's exciting to me. And so the very first thing you have to look for is, does a person that you're looking to bring on for a specific task, it's not, because here's a question we typically ask ourselves. Is this person willing and able to do that? Well, I'm willing and able to clean a bathroom, but I'm going to tell you within 2 months of doing it, I'm going to get so burnt out and exhausted. It's going to drain my energy. And so we look at personality assessments at Northstar. We personally use predictive index. That's a great one, highly recommended. You can also look at DISC is another one that many folks use. But what you have to find are, do people have the personality type and they're hardwired? We're all hardwired a certain way. Are they hardwired to do what's required of them to make sales? For example, our administrative lady that sits in the front. I just literally had a conversation with her. I said, I won't say her name because she might watch this, but I'll say to her, you have to stop people from doing this. And no matter how many times I've told her, she's not fixing it. And so I pulled up her predictive index, and what I realized is she's a lady that at all costs will avoid confrontation. So I'm asking her to do something that she's not hardwired to do. The truth is, if she was an agent on our platform selling, she might survive 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3 months. But my gosh, by 4, 5, 6 months, it's going to literally drain her energy and she's not going to be happy. And without that sense of fulfillment, your agents or anyone else you hire within your organization are not going to make it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you're looking at personality, and you feel like it's fairly accurate and giving you a good candidate that has long-term potential.
It's a tool. Everything's a tool. So you have to, how does the interview process go? How does the predictive index look? Now, you don't make a decision just off the predictive index or the DISC profile, but you don't make a decision just on the interview either. I interviewed one of our top people that we have in our company, had a terrible interview. And it's because she was at her last job for 7 years. She had interviewed in literally 7 years. So she was just nervous. Sure. And I can be an intimidating guy at times. So you have to take everything into account. Don't make a decision based off of just one single bucket when there's a variety of buckets you can actually look at.
Do you guys weight the experience or inexperience of an agent selling at all? If so, how big of a deal is that to you?
Yeah, it does matter, but we won't turn somebody down one way or the other. Okay. Your best ideal candidate is someone that has no insurance experience and someone that has some phone experience, okay, specifically in collections or just some kind of high pressure sales. Not that final expense is high pressure, but you need someone that's used to facing a rejection. Now, again, the idea with that though is career insurance agents, they get like, you can't think. And I know that sounds really weird, but you just can't think. You just have to do. I watched a video with you, David, on Facebook. You were wearing a jiu-jitsu for whatever a uniform.
Yeah, gi. Yeah.
Imagine if you were in the middle of a jiu-jitsu match and you weren't trusting your instincts for the next move, and you were actually trying to think it through every time. You're always playing 2 steps behind while your opponent's 2 steps ahead.
Right.
And that's the difference. People that are in the insurance space, they typically, what you find is they're thinking too much. I mean, look at it, David. Look at these Facebook groups. I have a client that has this. What should I do? It's like, first of all, why did you walk out that house without doing something is the first question we should ask ourselves.
Yeah, sure.
The second question is how often do you really even come across that situation that you're so concerned about it? And the third thing about it is doing something. Just trust your instincts, trust your experience. But that's just a common mentality, unfortunately, with career insurance agents.
Yeah, no, I think of me and my agency, I would say probably about 70% are brand new, and probably the other 30% have varied experience. And the one advantage, I think, with new people, you have the ability, they're a blank slate. They have no bad habits. They don't have a history or experience of that may be counter of what you're trying to teach. So it's easier to teach your way to them. And if you treat them right and do well, they're more bought in, I think, you know. And I've
Absolutely.
always liked training new agents. It's been, some people don't like it at all, and I think, really, that's great. You know, if you treat them right, you know, there's a lot of advantages to it.
I totally, but the only way that works, David, is if you have a fantastic training program. If you don't
Yeah.
have a good training program, it's not going to work. Stick to insurance agents. But if you have a really good training program, bring in the fresh blood.
Yeah. So let's jump right into that. Since you mentioned training, what does the new rep training process look like?
So our training process is about 5 business days is how long it takes us. And we literally cover everything from what is final expense. You know, it's Vince Lombardi used to start training camp every season by holding a football in his hand and saying, "Folks, this is a football. All right, well, folks, this is final expense. I don't care if you've done it for 35 years, for 3 years, or you don't even know what final expense means. You're going to start right from the very, very beginning." And we start literally by talking about why do we do what we do? What's the purpose of it? What are other options that clients have when it comes to covering their burial expenses? What makes simplified whole issue some of the best options for some folks, not everybody. There's never a solution for every single person. But for some folks, why do we do what we do? And then we literally jump into a whole sales presentation in regards to how do you influence your customer? What kind of tonality do you have to have? How do you tell an impactful story? When should you tell an impactful story? How do you get your customer on an emotional roller coaster? How do you get a rapport with your customer? How do you break rapport with your customer? How do you avoid that? What are cues you should be listening for? So it's a lot. I mean, it's a fire hose of information hitting these agents at once. And then I end training the same exact way every time. And I tell them that you're going to forget almost everything that we taught you because they are. And
Sure.
so what we do, David, is there's a quote that says, practice makes perfect, or practice till you get it right. We actually believe that we should be practicing until we can't get it wrong. And so a
Mm,
lot of our training, and if you're not doing this, I highly recommend it. Repetition role plays, nonstop, go, 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 until they cannot get it wrong.
right.
And that's how we set folks up for success when they start receiving leads on our platform.
So you got 5 days as a new agent to get this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, five. So yeah, five
Business
days
days.
of classroom training,
Okay.
and then you're going to have about 5 days of outbound calling in a B-Lead database, where you're going to have coaches that are going to be right there with you, helping you through the sales process, talking to you live on calls, messaging you, chatting with you, whispering to you, just really holding your hand through the process. After that, then that's when we start. Because for those that don't know the Northstar platform, we cover the cost of leads for our agents.
Right.
And so before we get in the inbound calls, we let them practice the outbound calls. And after that, about 10 days in, they start receiving the inbound leads coming into them.
So there's kind of a, is that kind of an evaluation period at that second week to kind of see how they perform, kind of see how they think about actually doing it? And are you kind of assessing them as far as, are they a good fit? Are they following the script? Or is that kind of that going on as well?
Yeah, that's it's we call it preseason, right?
Okay.
It's real time. So we've role played up to this point a significant amount of times. Well, and the way I look at it is now you're going to role play again with real clients that on a free lead, a lead that we've already paid for, that we just are kind of sitting aside, say, play around with
Sure.
this. And the truth is, many agents close a lot of sales doing that. And what it actually does is it builds their confidence. For those that are facing rejection and not getting a sale, it's not necessarily deflating their confidence, because they still are holding on to that sense of hope that I'm going to get inbounds and it will get easier. And inbounds will make it easier. But unfortunately, some folks sometimes seem to forget that there's no such thing as just a lead that's going to just buy from you. It requires
Yeah.
effort from your part.
Yeah, you got to like persuade them. You
Yeah,
got to sell yourself,
absolutely.
right?
You have to.
And that's good. That's so they're essentially working the kinks live on a tougher opportunity, but it gives them the kind of training, live training, it sounds like, to be prepared for the live leads that come in, and
Yeah,
to
I
be
mean,
more prepared. So it is preseason. That's the perfect description of it.
absolutely.
Okay. Um, let's see what else. You mentioned leads. Let's talk leads. So how do you get so many leads to keep hundreds of agents busy every single day? What do you do?
Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna go back for a second.
Okay.
There are when you look at getting with an insurance carrier, I think too many agents put way too much emphasis on what is their first year commissions, and they don't spend as much time focusing on what's the actual value of a sale when you fast forward by, let's say, 10 years or for life, depending on what your renewal base is. You have to make sure the reason why you get an insurance and the reason why you open up a call center is because you want to write large volumes of insurance and you want to build a residual based revenue or income for your business, for your family, for you personally, so you can actually like have the reward of all of your hard work through all the years. And so the first thing that I just want to say about leads is leads are not cheap. In fact, there are many times that Northstar takes an initial loss on agents because we understand that we may make up that loss 2 or 3 years in from a residual base. Like you have to understand that because even us, David, we get leads for, I guarantee you, cheaper than anybody else. We buy so much volume.
Right.
We advertise so much on Facebook, so much on SEO marketing, so much with TV commercials, so much with, and we do use vendors as well too to supplement what we can't have. We have 75 telemarketers that work right down the hall from where I'm sitting right now. So I mean, we have an army that's generating these calls. Even as cheap as we get them for, our cost per lead is still a lot. I mean, we're still paying a premium dollar for what a lead costs for us. Do not sacrifice the one area of the business that creates new revenue for the business. So it doesn't matter what you look like. If you are a face-to-face agent, buy more leads. If you are an individual telesales agent, buy more leads. If you are a call center or you want to get into call center space, buy more leads, even if you're losing money, because it's the only way you're going to come out on the other end. Now, going to your question though, David, of how do we generate so much leads? We are pumping so much volume here. We don't cold call. We're finding folks that have an interest in listening to what we have to offer. And then we're just doing different algorithms from the dialer that creates different touch points. And how do you recreate interest? And how do you get someone that may not says no to us today, but retarget them back 2 months later through an email campaign or a texting campaign? Be careful by doing that. Make sure you're TCPA compliant. But so we are retargeting our individuals, but you have to do it strategically because if you want to scale a call center, your responsibility is not only to make sure that you have the quantity of leads, but you have to make it as easy and simple as possible for the agent to actually make a sale. Because the 6 inches right here between the head, if that thing gets messed up, it don't matter how good the lead is, it's not going to work. It's just not.
Yeah, and that brings me to this next question of morale. How do you keep the mindset positive? I mean, every agent's going to run into people who buy one day and then cancel the next. I had an agent I was talking to, sold a big deal over the phone. And of course they called back a couple days later, couldn't keep it, that kind of thing. There's so much, if there's competition, I think you'd agree it's all up here, really. There's not really the rest of us aren't competition with each other. What tactics do you employ to keep morale high, to keep mindset positive?
Well, you have 4 kids, right, David?
Yes.
When one of your kids has a fit, what do you say to them? What do you do to them? Like a little temper tantrum, like the what do they call the twos, the
terrible twos.
Terrible twos. That's right.
Terrible.
What do you do? What do you do to the 2-year-old?
I calmly react. I understand that they're just out of control, and I listen to them. I'm empathetic. They chill out, then they're happy. I have this calming effect.
So what you're doing, David, is you're reframing their mindset, right?
Yeah.
So they're focused on what they don't have or what they want. You're not going to give it to them because they can't have ice cream at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. So you sit down with them, you look them in the eye, you talk to them, you show them empathy, you make sure they know that you love them, and then you just reframe their mind over to something else so they stop thinking about what's hurting them.
Right.
It's actually no different with adults. It's the same concept. You have to reframe even adults' minds. I mean, people.
Yes, for sure.
And And the way that you protect morale in a call center is the same way that you keep morale of children happy. And I don't want to compare any agent or an adult professionals to children, but psychologically speaking, we all have that inner child in us. We
Right.
all want to be high
Oh, yeah.
five. We all want to be told good job. We all want to just hear a smile. One of our core values at Northstar is enthusiasm. We believe that everyone that walks through these doors needs to be happy. And if you're not happy and can't offer your best self to your coworkers, to your colleagues, to your clients, then you just shouldn't be here. And part of that is leadership. And what is leadership doing to making people feel good every single day? Not beat somebody up, because we have those tough conversations, David, all the time. We have tough conversations with agents that blow a lead, that don't do what they're supposed to do. But you do it in a calm, non-emotional, don't take it personal way. And you do it with really the goodness of your heart because you truly want to help them. When you truly want to help them, in return, you're actually helping yourself with the business as well too. But it starts with them and helping them out.
Right. Absolutely. So, and you've kind of talked about this already, Tony, to an extent. And you've given a lot of great information on how you guys got started, kind of just figured it out as you went. If you're thinking, if we're talking to the people who are watching right now that maybe they're doing well in telesales or they have a long-term aspiration, like I did at one point, I wanted to create an agency.
Sure.
What advice would you give them in creating a call center to do it the right way? Maybe to avoid some of the mistakes you made early on when you got started.
I would tell them, the first thing I would ask you is, what are you willing to sacrifice? That's the very first question you have to ask yourself. Are you willing to sacrifice your time? Are you willing to sacrifice your money? Are you willing to sacrifice a vacation? Because there's always going to be a sacrifice. And one thing that I will just encourage folks that are not willing to make a sacrifice, I just want to make sure that they know that if you're not willing to sacrifice something, your dreams become the sacrifice. And I would never, ever encourage that for anybody. But when you start a call center, to avoid the mistakes, you just have to know that it's going to be a grind. And it's not easy. It's hard. I mean, hell, I lost my hair doing it. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. But the most important thing is laying a proper foundation. And I believe that the foundation that every call center needs to be laid out solid is good culture that instills high morale in people. But part of a good culture and high morale means also high levels of accountability across the board. That means accountability to the agents, but that also means letting your agents hold you accountable to deliver and whatever it is that you've promised them. If I promised you leads, a good quality lead, and I don't deliver, David, you need to pull me in my office and talk to me like I would talk to you if you did something wrong. And it's working together like a true team. And that is the most important thing above everything else. Everything else will fall in place. And David, you see this with agents all the time. I know you do, because I do as well. Like, they come into work in the morning and they get their coffee, and then they start shuffling paperwork. And then they go and they start checking their email, even though there's really nothing to check. They start browsing the internet. They check their email again, and they're doing all this busy work, but really they're just procrastinating.
Avoidance behavior.
What's it again?
Avoidance behavior.
Absolutely what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's like, that does not generate revenue for your business. And it's so easy when you're in the call center space to get caught up in some of the busy work, but that busy work is actually low value activity because it doesn't create new revenue for your business. Make sure you prioritize your time and you focus on, how do I create new money for this business? And eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to have a recruiter, you're going to have a sales manager, you're going to have admin staff, and you're going to get to a point where you don't have to do it all yourself. And that's where you eventually want to get to. But the longer you push off these tasks, or the longer you focus on these low value activities, the more you're going to be in the business rather than working on the business.
Yeah, so important, especially paying the price. I mean, I used to hear that all the time from, Tony Robbins and all the motivational types. And maybe it's because I'm getting older. You start realizing all those things your mom and dad said were true. They actually are. And if you want anything in life, guys, you got to pay the price, and it means you have to sacrifice. But Tony, I speak for Tony. I'm sure he'd agree with me. Same here. It's worth it, man. There's so much that you get out of this. So much value for paying that price, So
There is everything good in life. David takes a sacrifice. I
yeah.
mean, my son David is 3, and
Mhm.
I don't know how you have 4 children, but God bless you. My son's 3. It's been the hardest thing in my life has been being a father, but it's been the
Right.
most fulfilling thing in my life.
Right.
And everything is difficult. Like nothing's going to be easy. And as long as you can understand that whatever journey you take, it's going to be challenging, then accept the challenge, be the best version of you, and accomplish it.
Good stuff, Tony, man. I appreciate you being here. Can you wrap things up for us and tell us where agents who are looking for a home, maybe interested in talking to you, or even agencies? I think you guys recruit agencies as well. Can you just kind of give us some more information on how people can contact you that want to?
Yeah, look, Northstar is not for everybody, and I would never ever tell you that it is, just like an insurance product is not for every client. And so there are a lot of agents that are trying to get into telesales. And I will also caution you that when you do choose to get into telesales, do not take TCPA compliance lightly. It is a real thing. And the bigger you get, the larger the target gets, and the more eyes that are on you. And there's just a lot of little simple things that people just don't think is a big deal. And I promise from my experience, if you take one thing out of this, understand that it is a real thing.
Yeah.
If you're a person that's looking to get into final expense telesales, Northstar may be the home for you. It may not be the home for you, but feel free to check us out at northstaria.com. If you're an agency that wants to get into telesales or wants to start a call center, we have a sister company called Premier Producers Group. That is more of the broker side model, and that's also available there too. But look, I'll tell you, I've been tremendously blessed in my life, and I've worked very, very hard. And if there's anything that I can do to help somebody else out, just from a personal note, I'm always able, I'm always willing. And so feel free to reach out to me. You can email me, my first and last name, Tony Hakeem at northstaria.com, or send me a message on Facebook. Just find me on Facebook. I think I'm the only bald-headed Tony Hakeem with a beard, so it should be easy to find. But if you just need anything, need any help, I'm here for you. I'd love to see others win, and let's find more winners in the insurance space.
Hey, Tony, thank you so much for being here, man. It's been great.
David, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you. We'll see you.
See you later.